This is Mariah Cruz, and you're listening to the Spiritual Deep Dives podcast. Did Jesus perform his healings through a forgotten ancient spiritual science rather than miracles alone, as later theology claimed? The story of Jesus didn't begin or end with the Gospels. In this podcast series, we venture beyond the familiar pages of Scripture and into the missing years, post-resurrection appearances, and the deeper spiritual truths hidden within his teachings. Drawing from the wisdom of the ascended masters, historical research, and ancient spiritual traditions, we will explore Jesus as a divine man who walked a path of mastery that revealed the true science of spiritual enlightenment and soul liberation. This series was researched and is presented by Joseph and Stephen Macchio, respected lecturers on ancient and modern spiritual teachings and authors of the Orthodox Christian Conspiracy. Be sure and check the show notes for links to the resources mentioned in this episode. Let's get into episode 28.
Welcome to episode 28 of Uncovering the Spiritual and Historical Life of Jesus. I'm Joseph Macchio.
And I'm Stephen Macchio.
And today we are going to be speaking about alchemical feats, healings, and siddhis.
Nice.
Not cities, S-C-I-T-I-E-S, but
No.
S-I-D-D-H-I-S.
I'm glad you spelled that correctly. And this is about Jesus and his tremendous healing powers. Because Jesus was a great healer, extraordinary, far greater than I think we actually realize, and
that is
certainly greater than what's recorded.
Yes, definitely. Because he healed far more people than is recorded in the Gospels.
Yes.
Far more. And he used actually different methods of healing. One time he used the plant known as hyssop, H-Y-S-S-O-P, to actually heal. And if you remember in the Gospels, other times he actually used mud to heal and spittle, because there's a transference of energy and power.
Through whatever medium he wants to use.
Whatever media he used. And so there are different methods of healing. And now sometimes, as we know, he also healed at a distance.
Mm-hmm.
And we see that with the centurion who said, I'm not worthy for you to come over to my house.
Yes, I remember that.
I'm not worthy for you to come over. And Jesus said, go thy way, thy servant is healed. That's it. And remember, what was that?
I was going to say, how far away was this? I mean, this was a common occurrence.
3 yards. It was miles and miles and miles. And of course, the Essenes, as we did learn, also are able to heal at a distance. So, obviously, this science is something that can be learned, that can be studied, that can be practiced. And, we're going to list these cities and powers that many people had in the ancient world and even very today. So these are the powers of an adept. We know that Jesus trained in these powers during his stay in India. We know he used yoga techniques well known for thousands of years, and plus that he had a momentum from his past lives, such as in his life as Elisha, the disciple of Elijah.
Yeah, we also know from the ascended masters that he used the violet flame in his healings. Now, of course, that would not be recorded. He didn't use that terminology. The violet flame would have different terminologies.
Yes.
And it's not really spoken about as far as, being in the Gnostic texts or any hidden texts that we've uncovered.
Yeah.
But the ascended masters have revealed that he definitely used the violet flame, and he taught healing methods to his disciples, such as visualizing a white flame in the palm of his hand, and then using the palm of his hand to the placing on of hands, which is an understood, well-known practice But if you don't have the correct visualizations, then you could be doing something completely different.
Yeah.
So Jesus had all of these techniques.
He knew them. And of course, he did teach some of these to his disciples.
Mm-hmm.
And this particular one about the white flame was actually from India.
Interesting.
He actually learned that from India.
So we're just going to show that these healing techniques go back into antiquity.
Yes.
And people were using these techniques way before Jesus ever came on the scene.
Yes. Yes. That's a good point. Jesus was able to transmute negative karma or set the karma aside, which is called forgiveness.
Right.
Setting aside. Now, obviously, this was done according to karmic law and under the direction of his guru, Maitreya Buddha.
Right. Now, that's an interesting point about setting aside of karma and being according to the law, because there are various people in India and elsewhere, it doesn't matter where they come from, that will claim they have the power of healing.
Yeah.
And they will place their hands on an individual and they will move the energy that perhaps is manifesting in the physical body or in the emotional body, mental body.
Mm-hmm.
And what they do is move the energy to another or any one of the four lower bodies. And it's not transmuted, you see. It's just moved.
No, moved.
But the individual who now believes that they are, quote, healed, say, well, my condition is gone, when actually it was just moved to one of the bodies, into one of the finer bodies, and will return to that individual because they did not follow the law, the karmic law, and they were not directed by a guru, especially a guru like Maitreya Buddha, who's an ascended being. And so this is, something that we have to keep in mind, because there are certainly people out there who claim that they're healers.
Yes. Yeah. And right. It's pushing back the condition.
Yeah.
Into the etheric, and it might manifest as a disease sometime in another life.
Yes. Right.
It was pushed
and
back.
the person goes through the whole life thinking, this person's a healer, I've been healed.
Yeah.
He goes the whole embodiment, nothing wrong with him.
Yeah. Because the cause and core hasn't been transmuted.
Right. But what you talked about with Jesus, setting aside, see, that's also a very fine point.
Yes.
Setting aside doesn't necessarily mean that it's just taken away, although that could be done.
Yes.
But it's many times set aside so that the individual could gain a momentum, gain greater mastery.
Yes.
And then when that karma is re-delivered, they actually have the mastery to overcome it.
Very important point. Yeah. Very important point. And this is kind of a difficult situation with people who want to become faith healers, although some of these faith healers do have the Holy Spirit in the past, and others did not.
Right.
For healing. So, again, with the so-called raising of the dead, means that Jesus called the soul, which had left the body, back into the body. And this, of course, happened with Jairus' daughter in the Gospels, and, of course, with Lazarus. So he was also adept at exorcism.
Yes.
And he could cast out entities, discarnates, demons, as we see, from the auras and the bodies of all those who came to him.
Right. And this is something that's scoffed at today.
Right.
They always point to, oh, you believe in that stuff where, Jesus or people like him, the whole problem was because they had demons or ghosts, or, they'll make fun of a science that they're completely have no information about.
Yes.
And so, but, as time goes on, there's all kinds of things that happen in the news as people read, and people's commentary is like they'll say things like, well, I looked into the person's eyes and there was nothing there.
You heard that.
Oh, yeah. They say this all the time.
Yeah.
And this, I'm talking about recent incidents where there are these, vicious killings, and the people that are observing these individuals, it's a commonplace for them to say that. Well, there has to be something there, because how can a nothing act, right?
Right.
There's got to be something there. And who or what?
How can an absence act?
Right. So, there's way more to this. We're not going to delve into this right now, but there's way more to this, and the science of removing entities and discarnates from an individual.
Yeah. We were also told by the masters that Jesus called upon the Elohim Astrea, Astrea. Now, Astrea was called the goddess of justice in the Greco-Roman pantheon. She was known in ancient Greece. As a matter of fact, her feast day was in mid-August, when Astrea was said to have ascended to become the great sign of Virgo, the Virgin, in the heavens.
Wow.
This is the ascension of Astrea in the middle of August. Now, the Roman Catholic Church celebrates Mother Mary's ascension or assumption on August 15th.
Oh, that's right. I had forgotten about that.
So this was a sacred day dedicated to the goddess Astrea, and again, we have the taking by the Roman Catholic Church of a date. Now, Mother Mary did make the physical ascension. This is a fact. It was not necessarily on August 15th, but that's when it is celebrated, to this very day in the Roman Catholic Church and perhaps other churches. So what else could Jesus do? Multiply.
Yes.
Substance or matter, change substance and matter from one form to another. So he was able to levitate, so his body was lighter than air. Now that was a known science.
Yes.
Levitation. There are stories in Buddhist sutras of Buddhist disciples levitating. One time, Buddha rebuked a disciple because he showed this disciple, who's supposed to be humble, and with a begging bowl and so forth, showed the people in this particular village. He was trying to prove the teaching of Buddha, and he levitated all the way up, to the top of this tree or something, or beyond the tree. So there are all kinds of stories. We're going to talk about Empedocles, Pythagoras' disciple, who could calm storms and walk on water. Okay, so we're looking at a known science, but in the Orthodox Christian world, the proof of Jesus as Son of God is that he does miracles.
Right. That's a major proof that they need to have.
No one else did that.
Right.
In other words, in Orthodox Christianity. So a whole record of history of adepts, East and West, is totally ignored. And no one delves into the holy science. So Saint Germain explains how Jesus walked on water. In the first chapter of Saint Germain on alchemy, Formulas for Self-Transformation, he says, 2,000 years ago, when Christ walked upon the Sea of Galilee, his demonstration was a manifestation of the natural law of levitation operating within an energy framework of cohesion, adhesion, and magnetism, the very principles which make orbital flight possible. Now, my understanding of cohesion is the attraction of molecules of the same substance, and my understanding of adhesion is the attraction of molecules of different substance.
Very good. That's unusual for you to know that kind of stuff.
It is.
Usually I'm the one that's in the science area.
But you see, I went ahead of you. I went ahead of you this time and looked.
Thank God you have Google. Yeah. I don't know what you would do without it.
Written right here.
But it's an interesting orbital flight possible.
Yes.
That's a very interesting statement there. Saint Germain was way ahead of his time.
Way ahead. So Saint Germain continues, the light atoms composing the body of Christ absorbed at will an additional quantity of cosmic rays and spiritual substance whose kinship to physical light made his whole body light, thereby making it as easy for him to walk upon the sea as upon dry land. His body was purely a ray of light shining upon the waters. The most dazzling conception of all was his ability to transfer this authority over energy to Peter through the power of Peter's own vision of the Christ in radiant, illumined manifestation.
That's very, very interesting.
So that's when Peter wanted to walk upon the water
Right.
as well. And Jesus said, come over here and go ahead and step over the boat, walk on the water. And Peter got, he was walking upon the water for a while.
Right.
So Saint Germain then mentions the example of Jesus releasing a flow of energy when the woman touched the hem of his garment and the woman was healed. So these two examples relate to the law of the transfer of energy, is what Saint Germain calls it. Both of these demonstrations were feats of the science of alchemy, which deals with the all-composition of the spiritual and material energies of the cosmos on many planes.
It's very, very interesting. And that the meshing of those two is an amazing thing, because people usually think that the spiritual world is the spiritual world and has nothing to do with the physical world.
Yeah.
Yet Jesus is showing here that you can have mastery over one with the right use of the other.
Yeah.
And
a wonderful demonstration. He was one of the greatest of adepts ever to walk the planet. So Jesus had developed, quote from Saint Germain, the conscious power of controlling mutations and transmutations within matter and energy and even within life itself.
Very interesting.
He doesn't go on to explain the unquote.
No.
This is all for your meditation and our meditation.
Right.
Now, to transmute, as we all know, means to change or alter in form, appearance, or nature, especially to a higher form. Healing itself is also a process of transmutation. So Saint Germain says the transmutation, quote, is simply changing one form into another, such as water into wine, amplification and multiplication of the atomic and molecular substance, such as multiplying the loaves and fishes, and precipitation of the elements, such as calling down fire from heaven. The prophet Elijah called down fire to consume the sacrifice in the presence of the priests of Baal.
Mm-hmm.
Equally wondrous feats, Saint Germain says, performed by masters unascended and ascended indicate a most exact science of control over matter and energy. And this is from page 52.
Yeah, now that's an amazing, because Saint Germain himself is an alchemist.
Oh, of course.
And if he had a mission that would be similar to Jesus, he would have been able to do all of those kinds of things. It's kind of mission related.
It is mission related.
It's we have other masterful beings in embodiment that didn't necessarily do these things, but there were others that did. And I think we're going to go into some of that.
Yeah, you're right. It depends upon the mission, the purpose. Jesus was a tremendous healer, and he has overshadowed other saints who also healed. Now, there are examples of other masters and adepts practicing the science of alchemy. We want to make this clear because we want to show, again, the teaching of the Great White Brotherhood down through the ages and the science of the Great White Brotherhood, the divine science that's been practiced from time immemorial. Now, we know that Jesus changed water into wine. The ancient god-man Dionysus was said to have changed water into wine on the night of January 5th. For the next day, January 6th, was sacred to Osiris and Dionysus. This happens to be the date of the Epiphany in Christianity. You see the connection?
Well, it's more than a connect. To me, it's a stealing. it's a stealing of what happened long ago.
Yeah.
And Christian orthodoxy used not only the dates, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're using ancient sciences and bringing them forward in time.
Yeah.
But yet at the same time, they ultimately make Jesus into a god.
Yeah. So and that's why there was a controversy between the early Christians and the so-called pagans of this other tradition, which we're speaking about, of mystery schools, mystery religions. And there was a tremendous controversy because the so-called pagans kept saying, well, we have the same thing.
Yes.
We have Hercules, we have Dionysus, we have Osiris, we have Apollonius, which we will be talking about, doing the same things as your Jesus does.
Right.
You know,
right. They couldn't have
because
that.
the Christians became, after a while, very closed and not universal. See, something that may have been a universal or intended to be more universal, as the Gnostic Christians were.
Right.
They were still Christians, but they were universal in scope. In some of the Gnostic teachings, you have references to Homer and mythology, and then the next page they talk about the Bible.
Right.
Yeah, of the texts.
And that's what you have to do if you're going to make your church the only one true church.
Yes.
And everyone else becomes either mythological, they become magicians, they become, they'll even go to the point of saying it's black magic and witchcraft.
And they did that.
Of course they did. They had to.
They had
to. And then, so pagans believed in witchcraft, but anyone who belongs to the one true Roman Catholic Church does not, because they believe in the God Jesus that we created.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line.
Yeah, that's the bottom line. Quote, I'm quoting from the book called The Jesus Mysteries on page 38. According to Pliny, Roman writer, on the island of Andros, which is a Greek island, a stream of wine flowed in the temple of Dionysus and continued for 7 days. But if samples of it were taken out of the sanctuary, they immediately turned to water.
Dude, what is this with the water and the wine all the time? It's always water and wine. It's never something different. It's like the mysteries is just another level of evidence that the mysteries stay the same.
Yes.
For a very inner understanding of what wine represents and what water represents. And that's why they don't divulge from, wheat and barley and any other liquid.
Juice.
No, certainly not. Or lemons, and they have all kinds of juices in these days, but no, it's never.
No, it's not. Because these are the two sacred substances.
Right.
That they've been known. So we also hear that on the island of Naxos, a spring miraculously issued forth fragrant wine. Dionysus now was considered to be the Logos in incarnation, as was Jesus. He was called the light of his father, Zeus or Deus in Latin, or Jupiter, Deus Pater, Father God. There is recorded that the miracle of turning water into wine took place at the marriage of Dionysus and Ariadne.
So there's another thing that always happens all the time.
We have the marriage at Cana.
Right. The marriage
water
here.
was turned into wine.
Right.
When Dionysus married Ariadne.
Same thing.
Water was turned into wine. So you see, these are archetypal images that the Brotherhood is impressing upon the people in different dispensations, in different eras, among different peoples. The light bearers of the so-called Gentiles and the light bearers of the so-called Essene Judaic tradition. There were mysteries in the Judaic tradition, as in the Greco-Roman and tradition even of Asia Minor. So, for centuries before Jesus, Dionysus was associated with wine and grapes. These were symbols of spiritual energy entering into matter.
Very interesting.
But Alpha and Omega, spirit and matter, you see.
Mm-hmm.
So, we do know that in time, the rites of Dionysus, later called Bacchus, were perverted into drunken revels and so forth. So when we are speaking here of Dionysus, we are speaking of the original dispensation founded by Orpheus in very, very ancient times, and not the later misuse of the Dionysian rites. So Jesus actually revealed himself as the archetypal Dionysus when he said, I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine dresser.
That's another common theme that you see throughout with all of these individuals from the ancient world of being the vine. They're always the vine and the vine dresser. It's a common, and also what's common is the perversion of the original dispensation. I don't care how far back you go, but the fallen ones will always attack any dispensation, whatever is going on,
Yeah.
and pervert it into something that is no longer sacred.
Yeah.
And that's something that they have to do all the time also. So it's
Yeah.
common. Again, you know their playbook.
Yeah.
You know?
Point, counterpoint.
Right.
So Dionysus, of course, is represented with grapes in his hands, around him, and so forth. Now, the great healer of ancient Greece, and we are on the subject of healing, the great healer of ancient Greece, Asclepius, was said to have cured the sick and raised the dead. Now, Pythagoras himself, a former embodiment of the master Cthulhu, was famous again for alchemical feats. He went from town to town in Italy healing people. In the life of Pythagoras by Iamblichus, he writes that Pythagoras' innumerable miracles included, quote, tranquilizations of the waves of rivers and seas in order that his disciples might more easily pass over them. From
Very
page
interesting.
39 of that book. Now, Jesus also calmed the storm. They were both able to command the elementals, both Pythagoras and Jesus. Now, Pythagoras predicted earthquakes, and he was known for the rapid expulsions of pestilences, cessations of hail.
See, this is very interesting.
There are modern adepts that can stop hail.
Because when people think of Pythagoras, you're not thinking of a religious personality or a spiritual leader of any sort. When you think of his name, you think of the Pythagorean theorem, you think about science, you think about the angles and the shapes and the sounds that he related to those various shapes. And so this is very important.
It is.
This is never talked about.
No.
And for, that the Ascended Master Cthulhu to have been embodied as this, we also know another embodiment of his was St. Francis, but the Pythagorean embodiment is a tremendous opening, to people of understanding what level this individual is at, just because he taught in the Pythagorean schools and his own schools, mostly science and things of learning.
Yes.
Yet he had these powers.
Yeah.
It's absolutely fascinating.
Yeah. Pythagoras was also able to bilocate and was seen at Metapontum in Italy and in Sicily at the same time.
Wow.
Well, we know Padre Pio,
Yes.
a modern saint, also was able to bilocate.
And that was in the 1960s. I think he passed away.
He passed away in
1968. 68.
Yeah.
Okay.
But there are many documented stories of bilocation. Now, the disciple of Pythagoras was known as Empedocles. He was a great wonder worker. People followed him in droves. He cured sickness. He was known as the wind stiller and had the ability to control the wind and rain. This is from page 40 from the life of Pythagoras. Empedocles was said to have raised back to life a woman who had been dead for 30 days.
Oh, my goodness. That beats Jesus' feat of only just a few days.
And there's no competition.
No, I know.
Because it so happens that very day as we sit here, the office and hierarchy of world teacher is held by Jesus and Cthulhu.
Right.
And Jesus asked, when he was given the title of world teacher, he was previously the
Johann of the...
Yeah, the Kohan of the Sixth Ray.
Yeah.
He asked that Pythagoras or Cthulhu now be with him in that office. So you see, Jesus would never consider himself greater or lesser.
Right.
It just doesn't enter into the mind of a great Buddha like Jesus. Quote, Empedocles assured his disciples that as a result of what he would teach them, they would be able to fetch from the underworld the life force of a man who had died. Page 40.
Yeah, that's amazing.
That life force could be the astral body. It could be the soul caught in the astral plane.
Right. And, if someone is out of embodiment, or the life force is removed from the physical body for 30 days, something must have had to have happened with the physical body. They're not explaining the whole thing here, but otherwise there would be a decay rate. Now, decay rates, we know, can be slowed down. We have a situation which you can go read online or get the books about. They're called the immortals, the various saints. They happen to be, a lot of them, Christian saints, canonized by the Catholic Church.
Yes, they are all Christian.
Right, where the decay rate was halted for hundreds of years or slowed down. And some of them look very much like the time when they died.
Yes.
And so that is also another science of how to keep the light contained in the physical body.
Yes.
And the cells do not go through a decay rate because the light in the cells and in the atomic structure below that is just maintained, so the physical body stays.
Yes.
And that's the only way that something like that could happen, where now you're bringing back the life force into a physical body that has not gone through any kind of a decay.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because that does explain how a person for 30 days, because it's probably the resurrection flame that has preserved that body.
Mm-hmm.
So we also have the record of Apollonius of Tyana, born in 15 AD, passed on in 100 AD at the age of 85. He was a disciple of Pythagoras, a philosopher, a wonder worker, an adept. He traveled to India, area of northern Pakistan, today to Egypt, was initiated in the Greco-Roman mysteries. He could disappear. His mission was to rejuvenate the sacred places of the Greek and Roman mysteries, especially the Greek mysteries, to restore the rites and rituals, to reconsecrate them. So there is a mission of Apollonius to the light bearers, sons and daughters of God in the Gentile world, quote, which meant not the Judaic world of that dispensation. And Jesus' mission also was very widespread. Paul's mission was also to the Gentile world that Apollonius also served. So Apollonius was friends with the Emperor Vespasian and Titus, but he got arrested by the Emperor Domitian, as did John the Beloved. He was arrested by Domitian, the Roman emperor, and Domitian was about to, execute him when Apollonius put his robe over his head and disappeared like that.
Wow.
This is documented. So the Great Right Brotherhood, according to the goddess of liberty, did work through Apollonius. Saint Germain says that Apollonius did not ascend at the end of that life, but he did reincarnate. Now, a lot of esoteric writers, including Theosophists, have stated that Jesus reincarnated as Apollonius. However, they were contemporaries. Elizabeth Clare Prophet does not actually believe that they were one and the same. But it is certainly possible that after Jesus finally departed his body that he was inhabiting at the time, in May 77 AD, he could certainly have used the body of Apollonius or overshadowed him if he wished. And maybe this is where the confusion comes in. The connection between Apollonius of Tyana and Jesus. Tyana, incidentally, is located in Anatolia, which is the eastern part of Turkey, known today. So,
that's fascinating.
We just want to really show you that this is far greater than just Jesus, the miracle worker, and it ends with that.
Right. And it's also very interesting regarding his life that when you have those powers, being able to disappear on the spot like that, it doesn't necessarily mean that you are ready for an ascension.
That's right.
And that many times these powers are for very specific reasons regarding your mission. And just because you display those powers, it may be that your mission needs to continue on regardless whether you have those powers or not. So I think at this point we'll end here for this episode. And next episode, we will be talking about those powers known as the cities. Thank you for watching.
Thank you.
In our next episode, the Macchios answer the question, did Jesus master the ancient cities to perform his miracles and demonstrate the hidden path of the ascension? Thank you for listening to Spiritual Deep Dives. If you like this content, please like and subscribe to our podcast. We'll catch you in the next episode.